Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you all doing this fine day? Hope you're all fit and well. Good morning to 10 Star Simulation. Just join us over on Instagram. Always good to see them here. Jim Turner is here, and I can prove it because I've just pressed his button. Mark Whiting's here as well. The buttons are working again. The sound appears to be working again. All is right with the world. The only thing that is wrong is you don't need to know who I am. So let me take... How do I take that away? I don't know. I honestly don't know how to take that. There we are. That's better. I have no idea where that came from. That was all part of the restarting business that we did yesterday because everything went absolutely pear-shaped. But good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing? Hope you're all fit. Well, I've got an idea. That I've been thinking about for the last 10 minutes. No, I've been thinking about it a bit longer than that. And it's based on the discussions that we have here on this show virtually every day. And the idea basically is... Things are going very strange again. The basic idea is this. I think we've all got our own preferences for machines, for attachments, for control systems, and all of that kind of thing. So I'm thinking that we might switch out the question of the day for a week or so to allow us to basically design our perfect machine. So I'm going to use chat, and maybe we'll back it up with some sort of form online as well, sort of kind of like a poll kind of a deal. And what I'm going to do is to get you to choose your ideal base machine, your preferred engine manufacturer, your preferred transmission, your preferred hydraulic pump, your preferred seat, quick coupler, tilt rotator, GPS system, and anything else you might care to hang off your imaginary machine. What do you think? Do you think we can make that fly? I think that would make for very interesting reading. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen has just joined us. Good morning to Dan Cullen. Let me press his button. That's not the right button. Let me go with that. And Ken Hatter is here as well. Morning, Ken. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So, yes, I was just saying... I'm planning to ditch the question of the day just for a week or so, maybe a little bit longer, to basically have you design your perfect machine. And I'll do some sort of poll. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'll do some sort of poll where you get to choose, as I say, your base machine, your engine, your transmission, your hydraulic pump, your seat, your quick coupler, all of the bits and pieces. So that together we will design. And I don't suppose I'll be able to visualize it. Maybe ask Fred if he can do something like that. But yeah, basically come up with what we believe to be our perfect machine. So you might, for example, choose a Volvo base machine, but put a Caterpillar engine in it. Or you might choose, I don't know, a Liebherr base machine, but you want, I don't know, a Grammer seat in it, and you want a steel wrist on the front end of it. That kind of thing. Do you think we can make that fly? I think we probably can. So, without, blimey, that looks horrible. Bear with me 1 second. Where does that live? It lives here, I think. That's better. That's the sort of thing we're more used to. Don't know why it's changed colour, but now we're talking. Now we're absolutely talking. That looks more like it normally does. Let me take that away because no idea what's going on there. Let's take that away. Jim Turner says, there is no perfect machine, just the best machine for a particular job or area of our industry. I agree, which is why I thought that might vary the feedback. So, there will be, I'm sure there will be Volvo fans and Liebherr fans and Komatsu fans among us. But how would you spec that out? Would you put a Caterpillar engine into a Komatsu? Would you put a Komatsu engine into a Liebherr or whatever it might be? That's kind of where I'm going with it. Footy is here, and he says, I've promised work for next week. Find out I've been barred off site because I caught possession cutting stand with my bucket, so they barred me from site. Cutting stand. Not sure what that means, but keep me posted on that. And Ken, Diggerman Ken, has for some reason popped up over on Instagram as well. Does that mean you're watching in stereo? Dan Cullen says it's each operator that has their preference. That's precisely why I think it's a good idea. I think that's, would we all go the same way? I'm fairly sure we wouldn't. Let me figure it out and see if we can come up with something that will work for everybody. And I'll come back to all of that anyway. I need to go back to a thing. Wow. They've updated the system, and it's just weird. And I can tell you that Ken is watching over on Instagram, basically because Facebook is playing silly buggers again. So with all that being said, it is time to roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show, the final one of the week, on the road. Here we go. Footy is explaining, I caught my bucket with on the fencing and they barred me off site for the next week, so I can't go on the site again. Seems a bit extreme. And Ken is actually watching over on Facebook, or on Instagram rather, because Facebook is still playing silly buggers. For some reason, and I don't know quite what it is, I don't know if it's an update with my system or an update with the Facebook system, but whenever I go to schedule this show these days, I have to schedule it twice with Facebook. It's like the connection isn't broken, but it's not as working as well as it should be. Good morning to Philip Body over on Instagram as well. Yeah, where were we? Yes, it is. What is it? It's Friday the 8th in November. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, we're off to France for Le Grand Demolition. I'm sure they say demolition differently, but I couldn't be bothered to find out what it is. How Caterpillar is helping create the mine of the future in Australia. We get behind the wheel of the latest loader from Wacker Neuson, and we're going behind the scenes at the latest Volvo Demolition event, which I was at earlier this week. Show you that in a bit. Plus, in my morning monologue today, excuse me 1 second, that's better. In my morning monologue today, I'm going to be looking at loyalty. Yes, loyalty in the demolition and construction industries, or more specifically, the lack thereof. Yes, loyalty. If you've got any thoughts on loyalty between people, between companies, between brands and that kind of thing, I'd like to get your thoughts on it. But before we get to all of that, there is the small matter of today's mystery machine. You know, I'm just going to queue up another victory for Dan Cullen, but this is what it looks like. Right, let me just address a few of these bits and pieces. Ken is saying, anyone else having Facebook problems? Most of the people that are watching this are actually watching on Facebook, so I'm only assuming that's not the case. Dan Cullen says, I think Ken needs a pizza in Facebook. Facebook would be good. Yeah, Ken, go and have some pizza. That might sort you out. Dan Cullen says, did you see the message I sent you on the group? I haven't, and there's a good reason for it. I plugged my phone in last night to charge it, which I always do. It's right by the bed. I charged it overnight. Turns out it wasn't plugged in. I put the lead in the phone, but the socket, the plug that went in the socket, in the hole in the wall, not on. So I have no juice. I'm currently charging my phone. I've not had a chance to look at it yet. Jim Turner says, why not give us a scenario, ground weather conditions, etc., and we say what machine or modified machine we'd find best to do the job with. Okay, I can do that. So yes, I can certainly make that happen. Jim Turner says, all good on Facebook, Ken. Yeah, as I say, I think it's a Ken problem rather than anything else. You've seen the question of the day. I'll come back to all that in just a moment. Let me take this. Let me take that away. Blimey, this is taking some real getting used to. They've just changed the location of two buttons and it's thrown me off completely. So mystery machine. This is what I would like you to identify if you would be so kind. Yeah. I'd like, as always, I'd like a make and a model if you could be so kind. I'll leave you to ponder that just for a second. Right, let's take that away because it is time for me to remind you. I know we've already had at least one answer on this, but I'm going to remind you of today's question of the day. Yeah, our question of the day today is quite simply this. What is your favourite cheese? Your favourite cheese? Now, my cheese tastes have changed over the years. When I was younger, the very notion of smelly cheese was enough to make me gag. But now, oh, different story. Stilton, love it. Gorgonzola, the runnier the better. I even find myself, and this is the weirdest one of the lot, I even find myself hankering for goat's cheese these days. I'm even relaxed about the fact that it smells entirely of goats. First time I ate goat's cheese, it tasted and it felt in my mouth like the worst thing I'd ever eaten. Now, different story entirely. So yeah, keep us posted on your favourite cheeses. Let's have a look. Let me put this up on the screen. There is our mystery machine. And what have we got? Jim Turner is saying a case backhoe loader. It is not. Dan Cullen is going for an Hitachi 3-tonner. It's not one of those either. Let me show you a bit more. There you are. There is the back end of a piece of kit. I'd like a make and a model if you would be so kind. While you're mulling that over, let me get the show on the road. It's entirely coincidental that we're talking about favourite cheeses just before we go off to France. Just a happy coincidence. But we're heading for France, and we are going to look at Le Grand Demolition. I think you'll enjoy this. I've no idea what went wrong there. Something went horribly wrong. The sound just cut out, and it went to a different size. I'll take a look at that. My apologies. And now, Mystery Machine. Let's not get thrown off our track. That's what we've got so far. We've had some guesses. Let's have a look. We had Hitachi 3-tonner. It's not one of those. A Case 3-tonner, says Jim Turner. Dan Cullen's going for a JCB 803. It's not. He's also going for a JCB 36C and a JCB 50Z. It is none of those things. In fact, I can tell you it is not a JCB of any description whatsoever. Our question of the day, which you all know, is what is your favourite cheese? And I know we've got one from Ken Hatcher, who is going for cheddar cheese. I would have thought you would have gone for mozzarella personally, Ken. You know, what with your love of pizza and all. Right, Mystery Machine. There is a bit more. Does that help at all? Nobody's got the right make yet. That's what we're looking for, make and model. Ken Hatcher says, strange, I have a problem. Ken, welcome to my world. I have many, many problems. No idea what's going on with your Facebook either. Because I've checked mine. In fact, I've checked it. We're broadcasting at the moment to both Demolition News and to Diggers and Dozers. Both of those are playing absolutely fine, so no idea what's going on there. Dan Cullen is going for a Case CX58D. It's not a Case CX58D. It's not a Case at all. It's not a Case. It's not a JCB, so you need to keep those guesses coming. Let me show you just a bit more, because the next video is about 7 minutes long. It's a good 7 minutes, but it's a good 7 minutes long. So let's show you a bit more. There you are. That's what you're looking at. I'm going to take that away because it is time to play you a bit of this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
We are headed down under right now. I'm going to say good morning to the fine folks over at Burke Demolition. Just joined us over on Instagram. Morning, chaps. Yes, we're heading down under. We're heading to the Pilbara. Yes, we are. And with the fine folks at Caterpillar. It's a good film, this one. I think you'll enjoy it.
The Pilbara, a region in Western Australia known for its vast mineral deposits. A region that mining group Rio Tinto has been extracting iron ore from since the 1960s. When it was time to develop their first greenfield site in over a decade, they recognised the opportunity to approach it in a way that simply wasn't possible before, integrating state-of-the-art technology into the DNA of the operation. And they knew that working closely with an OEM from the beginning would be key to the project's success.
It really started in January 2017. We sat down with Rio Tinto and talked about what could a collaborative relationship really look like, and ultimately, what would the mine in the future look like, and what would we do together to collaborate to create that.
We set out with a vision for Gudai-Darri to be the most technologically advanced mine for Rio Tinto in the Pilbara. And what we were really looking for was not only the machines themselves, but the automation. And we were looking for a company that we could partner with in developing further automation.
What was nice about that is they had a vision of what they wanted, but they weren't specifying exactly how Caterpillar needed to build that. They were willing to work with us and go back and forth on, this is the end goal we want, but what can Caterpillar do to help us reach that goal? And what is the right thing to do to help reach that goal?
As a result of this early collaboration, Caterpillar and Rio Tinto agreed to move forward together with the convergence of machines and technologies that the mining industry had never seen before.
As we moved forward through the development, we put together a governance structure that allowed the teams to come together on a regular basis to show the current results, to ensure that Rio Tinto had a voice into the product, to give us feedback either at a technical level or an application level, to make sure that we were collaborating in a way that was beneficial to both sides.
I must say it's been one of the most productive partnerships that we've been part of.
Caterpillar is positioned out on site, run teams that are willing to go out, be a part of the operations team, and work on behalf of the customer to ensure that the mining operation runs smoothly and that they get the most productivity out of their site. Those run teams provide a conduit to Caterpillar engineers and developers to really understand how the product's being applied and used in the marketplace.
Being able to get data back from the customer as soon as possible so that we can iterate on the solution and know quicker when things aren't working and be able to capitalize on the things that are working well. That is what makes us successful.
We put in place a maintenance partnership agreement with Craic to help us maintain all of our Caterpillar machines.
So we have a team of mechanicians and technicians that work within the Rio MEM team. Definitely doesn't feel like it's an us and them scenario, with everyone got a bit of skin in the game to ensure that the fleet performs at its optimum.
We're operating 19 autonomous haul trucks. What we really like is the safety aspect of the CAT autonomous system. We feel that our operators are very safe when they're here in the pit interacting with the machines. They know that if you get in the wrong place, that the truck is looking out for obstacles and it will stop.
Autonomous haulage is taking the operator out of the high-risk work areas and having them in a safer environment.
We have a remote operating centre down in Perth, and that's where all of our fleet management, our drills, our trucks, our water carts, our fixed plant are all operated from about 1,600 kilometres away. We certainly have been ramping up the productivity of the trucks. Machines don't need to have crib bakes or any of those sorts of things, so they can keep going.
You do see an impact in improved reliability because it's a consistent operating tempo. So you don't see that variability in different operators' driving styles. So you get a more consistent approach as to the way the trucks are used.
Gudadari mine is very low in water. We have to pipe the water from some distance away, so what we really liked was Caterpillar's proposal to look at automating water carts that can deliver just the right amount of water, not too much and not too little, at the right time.
Early in the process, we sat down and really asked how Rio would want to use a water truck. And once we got a little bit of a framework put together for the application of the water truck, we sent people to site that rode with water truck operators to really understand on a day-to-day basis what were the operators doing. And that opportunity allowed us to get to a better design quicker.
Developing the automated water cart has been one of the best and most successful automation projects that we've been able to do here at Rio Tinto. We turned on the water carts and they ran first time. They've been delivering water where we need them to deliver water and doing what we want them to do.
So next with Gudadari is really to let the product mature in that space. We'll continue to develop both the MineStar product and the autonomous water cart, making sure that we've got the best solution on the market.
It's been a fascinating mine to be involved with. We've been able to focus on bringing in new technology and also focus on what we wanted for our people. We really want to encourage our people to feel that they are able to come up with ideas and we can implement those as we go along and continue working with partnerships such as the one with Caterpillar and with Craic.
Now that we have those relationships in place and the trust both ways, it's really opening up, okay, what's the next big horizon? What do we take next?
Rio Tinto set out to make this the most technologically advanced mine in the Pilbara for us. And I think we've done pretty well in achieving that. We've introduced the world first autonomous water cart. We operate autonomous trucks, autonomous drills. We are working on an autonomous refueling system for the trucks and water carts as well. And we've done a lot in the data and reporting space through working with MineStar.
When you think about Rio Tinto, they're very much a leader in everything they do. And we're just really pleased to be able to work with somebody that has that kind of talent and experience and background. And then to bring what we have and mixing that together really has created some pretty amazing results.
Pretty smart. Pretty smart. I'm going to go back to the mystery machine in just a moment. Jim Turner, which kind of plays into my idea for this creating a dream machine. Jim says, that's exactly how machine manufacturing development should be. Identify the job, build and adapt the machine to do the job, and fast, safe, and efficiently as possible. Yeah, absolutely 100%. I'll come back to that in just a moment. I do need to say good morning to Chris Ford, who says, good morning, compatriots, better late than never. Internet problems, don't you just hate technology when it goes wrong? After yesterday's show, yes. Yes, I absolutely do hate when technology goes wrong, but we seem to be back on track today. Good morning, Chris. So to bring Chris up to date and to also recap on Jim's point here, I'm thinking about dropping just for a week or maybe 2 weeks, dropping the question of the day and replacing it with basically an ongoing poll in which we basically design our ideal, our dream machine. So what would you have as a base machine? Would you if you were to build an excavator and you've got to start with the base, would you start with a Caterpillar or a Komatsu, a Hitachi, Liebherr, Volvo? And what engine would you put in it? What transmission would you put in it? What hydraulic pump would you put in it? What attachments would you have? Would you have a quick coupler? Would you have a tilt rotator? And we're going to design that. David Hearn over on Instagram has just joined us. Good morning to you. Now, mystery machine. Let me take that away. I'll come back to that once I've figured out exactly how that's all going to work. But there's the mystery machine as it stands right now. We already know that it's not a JCB and it's not a case. There is Dan Cullen going for the Sani 2.5 tonner. It is not one of those. Dan Cullen also reckons it could be a Cat 303.5D. It is not one of those. He's casting the net here. He's going for the Mitsubishi ME30. It's not one of those either. I'm going to show you a bit more. There you are. There is a bit more of it. Well, that's not going to help in any way, shape or form. Chris Ford, we're going back to the question of the day. We're talking cheese. What is your favourite cheese? And there is Chris Ford, Wensleydale with cranberries. Any cheese with cranberries, but Wensleydale, yes, absolutely. Are you a Wallace and Gromit fan at all, Chris? If you are, you'll know the exact link with the Wensleydale cheese grommet. Yes, yeah, okay. I'm going to move on from that. Let me take that away. I'll come back to that in just a moment because we've got more to show you. What have I got next? Oh yes, we've got some Wacker Neuson. Back after this. Yeah, Wacker Neuson are on a bit of a roll at the moment, and just by way of purely by coincidence, I'm wearing my Wacker sweatshirt today. So yes, Wacker Neuson, wheel loaders and stuff. Here we go. Very smart is too. Not as smart as my sweatshirt, obviously, but it's very smart. Dan Cullen, going back to the design of machines. I think if companies that are buying machines ask the operator what they want on their dedicated machine, no one else gets on it as it's set to their preferred preference. Obviously, there are some companies out there that do precisely that. And I realise there are issues, if somebody's away on holiday or off sick or whatever it might be. But the flip side of that, you always seem to find that machines that are dedicated to one driver or one driver dedicated to a machine, that machine is always better cared for. It's always clean and tidy inside. It's always greased properly. I guess because there is a traceability. If you're not looking after your machine and it is dedicated to you, then your boss can spot it very easily. But I think you've got a good point there, Dan. Jim Turner says, I wonder if anyone has tried the idea of each track carrying its own water for individual dust suppression. Then there'd be less evaporation per pass. It would be laying its own water path as it drives and having to apply less water. It could also pick up more water on the move like an old steam train used to, or have it dropped in a tank from above so the truck only needs to stop for a minute or two. I wonder how much that would impact upon its carrying capacity. Because water's quite heavy, isn't it? Well, a lot of water is quite heavy. I do wonder about that. I do. Yeah, it's a good point. Good point, though, Jim. I'm sure there are cleverer folks out there than me that have played around with that at some point in the past. I wonder. We've got one final film for you immediately after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
So yeah, Monday and Tuesday this week, I was in Sweden. I was there with Volvo for the launch of their brand new high reach excavators, the EC400 and the EC500. That was the main reason for being there. But Volvo, very sensibly, bearing in mind the World Demolition Awards or the World Demolition Summit has been taking place also in Sweden, they took the opportunity to get a bunch of manufacturers together, the likes of Hammerglass and Demarec and what have you, and they put on basically a mini exhibition dedicated entirely to all things demolition. Well, obviously I was there for the Volvo bit, but I had a bit of a stroll around as well, and I took some film. This film, there is no way that I can check this, but this film might actually contain footage of the first ever man hug captured by a self-flying drone. I can't be sure of that, but I'm going to claim it. This is the film. There you are. That was a stroll around Eskilstuna for you. And just if anyone cares to know, the guy that I was hugging so manfully, Peter Lamb of Steel Wrist, lovely fella. Weird thing is, I first met Peter in Japan. Didn't know him from Adam. We met in Japan, and then it seems that virtually every exhibition, our paths cross and we catch up again. And he's an absolutely smashing fella. So morning, Peter, if you happen to be watching that. I've got a couple of comments that I need to address very, very quickly. Dan Cullen says, that's cool. Yes, the self-flying drone. I wouldn't say it's going to ever likely to replace Fred, but it certainly makes life easier if I am on my own. Jim Turner says, looks very hot and dry out there, which is, we're talking about the Pilbara back in Australia. So they must have to bollock a lot of water. Bollock a lot of water. I've never heard that before. More than they actually need just to allow for evaporation between passes. I'm sure that is the case. You know those razors? You know those shaving razors you get? Has it ever occurred to anyone that, you know, those like gel strips that they have on them? Jim, you're out of this argument because, frankly, you've not stepped anywhere near a razor in years, I would have thought. But you've got the razors like this, and then at the top, you've got the gel. Should the gel not go first? Should it not be at the bottom? So when you do your shape, should that not hit your skin first? I can tell you, Mystery Machine remains unsolved. I can tell you it is, in fact. I won't just tell you, I'll show you. That's what it is. That is a Hannix H15B, which means that me and Dan Cullen are back on equal footing. 6 points each. Very disappointed. My apologies, Jim. Yes, I do shave my head, so I am a razor man. Yep. Never done that. I mean, I think the day will probably come because, you know, it is as thin as all things. It's as thin as a supermodel on top of my head. Never actually shaved my head. I'm quite worried about it. I'm quite worried about, well, I mean, I've probably got some scars on my head because I've whacked it a few times over the years. Quite worried about catching it and nicking it and basically bleeding out. Is it hard? Been using a multi-head skull shaver, electric jobby. Nice. Dan Cullen's going back to work and he's going to be listening in, which is perfect timing because I'm going to be doing my morning monologue in just a second. Peter McKenna. Good morning, Mr. McKenna. How are you doing? Good of you to join us. That is pretty much it for the main part of this morning show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping. I need to address this before I get into the morning monologue because I need to get it out of my head. Chris Ford says, never shaved my head nor my scrotum. Thanks for that, Chris. And there was me thinking you were all smooth like a dolphin down below. Trust me, I've not thought of that before, but thank you for the information. Yes, I'm going to roll the outro in just a second. Leap gazelle-like over into my monologue. Monologue, if you can't stick around. Oh, it's all gone pear-shaped. Jim Turner says, I shave nothing but my head, Chris. I'm glad to hear it. Look, if you can't stick around, do please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. And I will see you again very, very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I will be back in just a moment. But before I go, I need to say good morning to this man. That man there is Mr. Danny Verheyen. Danny Verheyen, I hear you say? Well, if you were in the Benelux countries, you would already know that Danny Verheyen is, well, he is Mr. Volvo. He's also big friends with Al Grierson, recently of this parish. Morning, Danny. It was fantastic to meet you, my friend. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. You said you would, and here you are. Very, very pleased to see you here. Let's have a look. Peter McKenna, trying to sort a hire out for my mobility vehicle's failed MOT. Next available slot for repair, 3rd of December. So my new car won't be coming till after then. It's a pain, isn't it? Absolute pain. Right, okay, I'm going to go away and then I'm going to come back because it's morning monologue time. After this. They say that loyalty is a virtue, a quality that turns individuals into dependable, trusted members of a team, a workforce or a company. But in the construction and demolition game, loyalty has a funny way of being as much a liability as it is an asset. I've seen men stick with one company for decades, their lives marked by the rhythm of their projects, each site and every year blending into the next. They work through blazing summers and freezing winters, doing the kind of work that wears down the body and the soul. They give it their all because they believe in loyalty, whether to their boss, their workmates, or simply to the work itself. But I've also watched those same men get their marching orders the minute a contract didn't go through, or when the economy took a dip, or simply because the company wanted a leaner team. The ones who thought they'd be rewarded for their years of service, for sticking with it through thick and thin, are left wondering if all that loyalty meant anything at all. Some call it loyalty, others might call it naivety. Either way, loyalty is a double-edged sword. Let's talk about the workers. We've got guys out there moving from job to job, switching companies like clockwork. Not for ambition, not to climb the ladder, but for a few extra pounds in their pay packet. It's not much, but at times like this, every penny counts. When you're breaking your back day in and day out, when you've got mouths to feed, a little extra makes all the difference. So they chase it because why wouldn't they? Now, people outside the industry might say they have no loyalty, but they don't see the reality that these men live in. Loyalty doesn't pay the bills, and loyalty doesn't guarantee you'll have a job next month. When times are hard, when there's less work to go around, you have to think of yourself and your family. Because let's be honest, most companies would drop you just as fast if they needed to. So some workers choose to put themselves first. They look after their own because they know that no one else is going to do it for them. But with every job switch, they leave a little bit behind. The familiarity of the crew, the rhythm they've established with their colleagues, the unspoken understanding that comes with working alongside the same men facing the same struggles for months or even years on end. But it's a cost they're willing to pay because the world has taught them not to trust in loyalty too much. They've learned to be loyal only to themselves. Now let's flip the coin. Look at the companies. How easily they lay off staff when things get a bit tight. The same companies that preach about family values and loyalty are the first to cut ties when the numbers don't add up. Contracts dry up, bids fall through, and suddenly that family they talked about disappears into thin air. Loyalty? They speak of it in meetings, but it seems to stop where the spreadsheets begin. One day a worker is breaking his neck, proud to wear the company logo on his hard hat. The next, he's walking out with a box of his things. It's not that he wasn't good at his job. It's not that he didn't work hard enough or show enough commitment. It's just business, they'll say. Just the way things are. And maybe that's the hardest part, understanding that loyalty from a company isn't really loyalty at all. It's conditional, contingent on profits and performance, not on any sense of duty or responsibility. Maybe that's why some of us learn to keep a little part of ourselves back. Why should we give everything we know deep down? Let me do that again. Why should we give everything we know when deep down we're only as secure as the next quarterly report? When the bond between employer and worker is so easily severed, maybe it's only sensible to give what's required and no more. In the end, loyalty can feel a lot like gambling. You're putting something valuable on the line, your trust, your time, your health, and hoping it pays off. But there's no guarantee. And it's not just about people either. Look at the way companies treat their relationships with the brands they rely upon. A company will stick with a trusted equipment brand for years, decades even. Machines that have proven themselves, brands that are tried and true, the kind of equipment that becomes part of the team. Operators know these machines like the back of their hands. They know every creak, every quirk. They trust those machines to do the job right, time after time after time. And they've built up a rapport with the local dealer and the service team that helps to keep them moving. But then, one day, another company comes along, waving a small discount or a promotional offer. And suddenly, that long-standing relationship is gone. That brand loyalty, that sense of partnership, vanishes in the blink of an eye. All those years of dependability and reliability and rapport thrown away for a little extra on the bottom line. Sure, it makes sense on paper. But what about the people who have to adopt to the new gear? Who have to adjust to a different way of doing things? Does that count for nothing? I fear it does. The truth is, the handshake between companies isn't what it used to be. There's no loyalty between brands and buyers. It's a numbers game. The lowest price often wins. And that same ruthless practicality trickles down to every level. It's a cycle. No loyalty between companies, no loyalty between employers and workers, and in the end, no loyalty between the workers themselves. Is loyalty dead? Or was it ever really there in the first place? Maybe loyalty is a luxury we can no longer afford. In a world where the ground beneath our feet is constantly shifting, maybe loyalty is just a story we tell ourselves to feel a little better about our choices. Or maybe it's something we cling to out of habit, even as we watch it crumble all around us. In the demolition and construction industry, loyalty isn't a virtue. It's a gamble. You put your heart into a job, into a team, into a company. Maybe you get something back. Or maybe you end up one of those old timers looking back on years of work and wondering if it was all worth it. So here's the truth as I see it. Loyalty cuts both ways. It can hold you up, but it can cut you down. And maybe the real skill in this line of work isn't loyalty at all. It's knowing when to stay and when to walk away. There you are. That's my thoughts on loyalty within the industry. And there is a person that I was thinking of when I wrote that. Yes, I won't bore you with the details because it would be wrong to talk about it. But yeah, I do wonder about all of that. Let's have a look. Peter McKenna says, those antidepressants seem to be working out. Cool, calm and collected. Reading that out today, pal. Yes. And then, sorry, I jinxed it. Yes, it was only a matter of time. There are times when I'm not entirely sure my tongue fits in my head because I seem to trip over it a lot. Let's have a look. Jim Turner says, most of us are here for the money. Would we be here if we were minted? I would be doing my own projects where I'm the boss and it's my money I'd be using. So nothing wrong with chasing the money. I'm loyal to whoever is paying my wage at the time. That's what they're paying me for. But if they fall behind with the current rate, I'll gladly go and be loyal to the next highest bidder. I think that's absolutely right. And I don't actually have an issue with that. I think where I have an issue is, I think I've probably seen this closest, and I realise I was equally guilty of this during my career. I worked for a publishing company who didn't always treat me the best, but I had a degree of loyalty to them, and it was only when I had the benefit of hindsight that I could see actually they were taking the piss. But I've seen it with my eldest son, Ollie, who basically he works for a David Lloyd Leisure Centre, bends over backwards, works all the hours that God sends. It's time for annual review for bonuses or promotions and stuff. And time after time after time, he finds himself being shafted for one reason or another. As I say, the loyalty doesn't cut both ways. I also wonder about that from an equipment point of view. There are companies within all of the industries, but I always say I know demolition best. There are companies that have basically built their entire reputation, obviously on their ability to do demolition very, very well. But, you hire certain companies and they will come. They will arrive with Hitachi machines or Caterpillar machines or Volvo machines or whatever it might be. And it's not just a case of they're good machines, all of which are, but there is that rapport, isn't there? If you've got, let's say you've got a fleet of Volvo demolition excavators or Volvo excavators in construction, or you would like to think, if you've got a fleet of them, you've got 5, 6, 10 machines, you would like to think that a one phone call to SMTGB and aid will be on its way in whatever shape that takes. If you then decide, actually, I can get a better deal with a Lugong, for example, or possibly, that doesn't even need to be a Chinese brand. Maybe you could get a better deal with a Devellon or a Hitachi or whatever it might be. What happens to that ability to pick up the phone? Do you then have to go through that curve again? I would imagine you must carry a certain weight, a certain heft. If you own one machine and you phone for immediate service, I would imagine your request is treated in one way. If you are a fleet owner, if you own 10 or more machines from that same manufacturer, I would imagine that you would be treated a little bit better, a little bit more quickly, a little more urgently. If you then go from having, let's say, 10 Volvos to having 8 Volvos, and now you've got 2 Lugongs, are SMT still looking after you as well? I would like to think they are. But are Lugong or whoever actually looking after you in quite the same way, or do you have to go through that learning curve? And speaking of learning curves, what about the operators? We were talking earlier about this notion of a dream machine, the ideal machine that we would all like. If money were no object and somebody said to Jim or to Chris or to Peter or to Dan or to Ken, you can take all of the best bits of all these machines and bolt them together to make your ideal ride. They would all be different. But ultimately, you will be used to, if you're a long-term Caterpillar operator, you'll be used to how the Caterpillar feels, how it operates, how it moves, how it creaks and moans and groans. And If you are then switched over to a Volvo, a Liebherr, both of which are on a par, it won't feel quite the same. You've then got to go through a learning curve. So yes, the bottom line of your company might look a little bit healthier because they've bought a cheaper option or they've benefited from some discount. But how is that offset against your productivity? Are you immediately as productive on a new machine as you were on a machine with which you were wholly familiar? Peter McKenna says, I think everyone works the same. Yeah, listen, I'm exactly the same. I go where the money is. Don't have a problem with that. I think I tend to have more of a problem with it where you do feel like you've gone the extra mile, as I say, using my son as an example, where you've gone the extra mile and you would like to think that your employer, either directly or if you're a freelance in some other way, that they would go the extra mile in the opposite direction and meet you halfway. Often not the case. Peter McKenna says, I've worked 40 years of my life. I soon learned loyalty didn't always count for anything. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I have to be honest, I mean, maybe I was overly naive. And in some ways, I think the way that I was employed probably contributed to my naivety. I've mentioned before, when I first started in publishing, publishing houses and what have you in the UK were very, very strongly unionised. And the only way I got into that publishing company was because my father already worked there. He wasn't in the publishing side of things, but he worked there. That got me through the door, and then that got me a job. So not only did I feel a degree of loyalty to the company or to the individual magazine that I was working on, I kind of felt an indirect loyalty to this was my dad's employer, and therefore I had to behave in a certain way. And it was only, as I say, when you've left and when you have that benefit of 20/20 hindsight, and you can look back, you think, the place I worked was fantastic. The people I worked with, fantastic. The people I worked for, not so great. And the way that I was treated, actually, at times, pretty shit. But you only get to notice that and to realise that when you've actually had an opportunity to step away, look back and go, do you know what? That wasn't cool. That really wasn't cool. That's hit a spot, Mark. I've been there and done that. Yeah. Listen, as I say, it was inspired by somebody that we all know. I'm not going to bore you with it because, it's between them and me. But yeah, when you bend over backwards, you'd like to think that whoever you've bent over backwards for would reciprocate. Not always the case. Not always the case. To give you an example, and this is completely unconnected with anything we're talking about here, the number of times that I hear about companies, specifically demolition companies, but I'm sure this happens in construction as well, about companies that have gone under. And in during the last knockings, when they're desperately trying to survive and turn things around, there is this tendency to reach out to those that have supported you in the past, to call in favours effectively. And the number of times I've seen that backfire. So, you reach out to your excavator supplier, your attachment supplier, whatever it might be, and say, look, we're right up against it. But if you can do us a deal on this thing, or if you can extend our credit limit just for this period, then that will allow us to get through it. And then I'll settle up and we'll be all okay. And the number of times that goes wrong, that relationship basically is then destroyed, because can you do me a favor and extend the credit terms? The company goes down, and rather than extending the credit terms, the supplier is basically just given away money. And that leaves a bad taste in my mouth, I have to say. Chris Ford says, never paid top dollar, but never laid anyone off either. Even found subbies work when we got nothing much about. Loyalty goes both ways. You'd like to think. Yeah. I don't believe it does, but you'd like to think. Peter says, shame everyone doesn't work on these principles, Chris. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I've known plenty of lads that stopped at one crowd for years on less than they could get elsewhere because they think they're well in. They're up the road just as fast as the rest when the shit hits the fan. Yeah. I'm sure that is the case. And I do think, and I'm not saying they're doing it deliberately, but I do think there is kind of a brand of employment where an employer will take advantage of the whole better the devil you know notion. You know, maybe you could earn another couple of quid if you went 5 miles down the road to somebody else, but yeah, you never know, dear, and you never know whether. And I think that's played up, and it's kind of an indirect loyalty. Gary Muirhead is here. Good morning, Gary. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, guys, and happy Friday, everyone. It is a happy Friday. I'm very, very glad that the Friday has rolled around. Big family dinner this weekend. It's kind of. I'm trying to remember exactly what it is. It's kind of. Well, it's a combination of things. My mother-in-law is 80 odd, or is 80. I think it's their 60th wedding anniversary, but it's also my nephew is going to Australia for the next couple of years. So it's a happy birthday, happy anniversary, and bon voyage all in one. Yeah. Jim Turner says, and the lads that firms know want to jump ship usually get sent to places that would have other lads jacking just because they know they take whatever shit they're given without questioning it. See, that I think is how times have changed, and I know we talk on this show a lot about our woke millennial, the inheritors of the world, and the next generation, and we talk about them being lazy and whatever. One of the things that I think has changed, and I don't think this is necessarily laziness. I think we, and I mean the royal we, those of us of a certain age had a different work ethic back in the day. And I'm not entirely sure that our work ethic was necessarily right. Now, I'm not saying that the younger generation that expect to be paid whether they're at work or not, roll up when they like, insist on working from home, doing certain jobs and stuff. I'm not entirely convinced that is the way forward. But I was always given the impression, maybe it was my upbringing, maybe it was my schooling, maybe it was my dad who was a very, strict workaholic. I was kind of given the belief, I was led to believe that if your boss says jump, you didn't ask how high, you just did it. You just got on it. And, if your boss asked you to do a thing, that was what you did. Whereas I look at my kids, my daughter, for example, works for an electrical contractor. And, sometimes she's asked to, it's in her terms and conditions that every once in a while she will work on a Saturday. And when that Saturday rolls around, oh, bloody hell, I'm going to work on a Saturday. Yeah, but you signed up to that. You're not really in a position to be complaining about it. You signed up for that. And, my boss has asked me to do this thing. That's not in my terms and conditions. No, but he's paying you bloody wages. And I do wonder if the youth of today have looked at what we went through in the past and thought, do you know what? I think they were being mugged off a bit. And in a lot of instances, I look back and I think, yeah, I was being mugged off quite a bit. And I signed up for it and went back for more. Don't get it so much now. Well, I say that. I mean, I'm freelance now, so I can come and go as I please and work for who I like and not work for who I don't like. But you still get that thing. I mean, cut a long story short, me and my old business partner, we worked for Caterpillar for, I reckon, probably 15 years, doing their PR for Caterpillar out of Geneva, so basically for Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. And we worked for them for, as I say, for years. We were approached at one point by Komatsu. Komatsu asked us to do some work for them. And it wasn't even a case of, well, how much are you offering, or, what are the terms and conditions? It was like, no, instantly no. We work for Caterpillar. Now, you might argue that Caterpillar is that bit bigger and, but no, it wasn't a case of that. It was literally a case of, we've put 10, 12, 15 years into Caterpillar. There's no way I'm going back to Caterpillar and saying, up yours, I'm going to work for Komatsu. Not a hope in hell. Different now. I'll work for any bugger now, but yeah. Gary Muirhead says, I was always told if I wanted things in life, you had to work for them, not to rely on handouts from the government. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that went further than that. I know when I was on Plant Manager's Journal in particular, we bought it. We bought the magazine from another publishing house. And at the time, I was just a reporter on Contract Journal, but we bought it and I was moved over to become deputy editor of that magazine. And from the moment I was given the job title of deputy editor, that magazine became my baby. Absolutely my baby. You know, it was down to me whether it went out on time, and I would make it as good as I possibly could. But as a result of my commitment to that, did I get taken the piss out of? Yeah, absolutely I did. Absolutely I did. Mucked off royally on a number of occasions. You know, my immediate boss, my editor, would, you know, decide to go off on holiday when we were putting the magazine to bed and expect me to pick up the pieces. You know, I pulled all-nighters and that kind of thing. We won an award for our work on combating plant theft. And it was entirely my instigation. I came up with the idea, I named it, I produced it, everything else. When the award was given out, it was given to my editor who knew bugger all about it. So yeah, mucked off royally. Too many folks, excuse me, too many folks with it's not my job point of view nowadays. Yeah. I think I agree. I totally agree. I mean, to give you an idea, and I won't tell you the name of the client, but we did some work for an organisation some years ago, and we were building up to an exhibition. And during the exhibition, we're going to be giving out information packs, which was basically like a cardboard folder with 3 or 4 brochures inside. And you know, we'd had all the brochures printed, we'd had the folders printed, they were all made up and everything else. And all we needed was for somebody to sit there and go, that leaflet, that leaflet, that leaflet, that leaflet in a folder, and do that maybe 100 times. And the organisation had 3 secretaries, office admin people, 1 bloke, two ladies, and all of them, oh no, we're far too busy. And you know, besides, that's not my job. So I basically drove from here to there, picked the stuff up, and me and my daughter sat there and did it. Took us about 20 minutes. Not my job. Jim Turner says, I won't work anywhere if I haven't got a regular mount, but I don't mind if I'm sometimes needed to be on the tools, spanners, or loading out curbs. Makes a nice change. Yeah, it does. You know, that's one of the reasons. I mean, Fred is a way better videographer than I am. He is a way better cameraman than I am, and all of those things. But I quite like to do it myself every once in a while, purely because it breaks the monotony. I'm going to say good morning to Joe Brown Construction Company, who are over in the States. And I'm going to say good morning to Takashi, to 2057, who says, hi, bro. Second time I've been called bro this morning. Good morning. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So, yes, that's loyalty. Is it worth it these days? Is it? I'm not convinced it is. And I wonder if it's one of those things that you want to receive it, but you're maybe not so keen to give it. You know, I want my employer to, I mean, I don't have one, but I'd like my employer to be entirely loyal to me. And if the arse does fall out of the economy, that they'll stand by me. But if somebody down the road offers me another £5 a week, I'll be off like a shot. There's an imbalance there, isn't there? I think everyone wants the ideal world, and I think we mostly want the ideal world for ourselves rather than the greater good of the company, the business, the economy, whatever it might be. Dan Cullen, I will get to that message over on the WhatsApp group just as soon as my phone has got juice in it, which it may well have by now. I don't know because it's currently under my desk. So yes, I'll come back to you on that. Dan Cullen says, have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe, lads. I'm bro, and see you. Bro. Why have I become bro? I've no idea. See you next week. Yes. So next week, I think next week is going to be okay. The week after that is going to be no, let me come back. Friday next week, which I think is the 15th. I think it's the 15th. I'm going to be at the Institute of Demolition Engineers AGM, at which Adrian McLean of Armac becomes the new Presidente. So there will be no show on Friday because I've got to get on a train up to Birmingham first thing in the morning. So yeah, only 4 shows next week. And then the week after that, I think I've got something else coming up, but I can't for the life of me remember what it is. But you know, we featured a guy called Chaitan Maycott on this show a while back. He basically helps demolition companies make more money. he's going to be in town. He's going to be in town this weekend. So I'm going to be catching up with him at some point in the not too distant future, but that shouldn't interrupt the show. So all of that being said, that's us done and dusted. That's another week over. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I'll be back next week with more of this, whatever the hell this is. Until then, everybody have a fantastic weekend. Any word from Dr. Terry interview? I'm expecting Gary. I'm expecting Mr. Cornby to be at the IDE next week. He is a loyal IDE man, so I'm hoping to hook up with him there. I will ask the question. Just to bring you completely up to speed, the short story, which is called Echoes of Dust, that is available online now. In about 2 weeks' time, we'll be launching A Sight for Sore Eyes, Volume 3. That will be online in about 2 weeks' time. And then probably the 1st of December, I don't know where that falls, but the first day of December, we will be giving away a kid story for Christmas. So if you've got any sons, daughters, and what have you, nieces, nephews, grandchildren of a certain age, maybe around about the 6 to 8 age bracket, give or take, we'll have a story for them. And I am going to do it as an audio, so you can just download it and they can listen to it at their leisure. Yeah, there you are. And Gary Muirhead finishes off saying, thank you. Enjoy your weekend, guys. That's a fine note to end on. Gary, thank you very much. You enjoy your weekend as well. I'm off to go and do something far less fun, I guess. I don't know. But I will be back here on Monday, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and hopefully not tripping over my over-large tongue. Till then, everybody, have a fantastic weekend. I'll see you all very, very soon.